Hello, so my name is Mahsa Khaneghah. I'm the planning consultant here at Platinum, and I'm speaking with Alison Broderick, who's our planning manager. Alison, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure, hi, thank you very much. So I'm a chartered town planner. I've been working with Platinum for over 10 years now, and I'm based in the Savills planning team in Wimbledon.
Yes, okay, so lots of experience with Alison here. I think the key thing we wanted to touch on is in the past month, so at the end of June and then again mid-July, we've seen that the government have claimed to be looking to do the biggest changes in the planning system since the World War II. That's translated to a few changes in legislation as well as quite significant investment. So it'd be interesting to hear what you thought in terms of that as a strategy, looking at how potentially the economic impacts after COVID might translate in the next few months and even years.
Yeah, you're right. It's really interesting. It's obviously a very interesting time. If you hear the word unprecedented one more, I think it's time, go a little bit mad. But it's a very interesting. There's a number of issues with the sort of wider construction and economy in general. So, for example, the high street has been well documented, the issues the high street was struggling with pre-COVID, and so part of the package of measures announced over the past month or so have been looking to address not just things that COVID has exacerbated, but trying to look at the wider economic picture. So the housing market and the shortage of housing in the UK is well documented. The struggle of the high street are two interconnected things, and hopefully these changes are a signal that the government are looking to push through some investment in these sectors and trying to get Britain, build, trying to get Britain moving again in terms of that structural investment in residential and also retail, leisure. The high streets are almost the core of town centres, the core of where people go to live, work, play, and it's trying to make those places that we want to live, but also make them efficient, and make somewhere that that could be an economic driver as we hurtle towards Brexit and out of the COVID situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that's translated is almost looking at streamlining the planning process, which notoriously can sometimes be a bit clunky or experience a lot of delays. So the actual changes we're seeing are to do with permitted development. So it'd be interesting just to have a kind of overview of the differences between prior approval, permitted development more widely, and also full planning permission, just so we can figure out exactly what is being put forward here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the planning in the UK is a relatively unique system in that it's set out. We've got local plans against which applications are tested, but everything is decided on its own merits. And most commonly, that is done through the full planning application process. And so that's where you get together. It's a sort of traditional planning application, if you will. You have your application form, your related statements, some supporting documents, drawings, things like that. You put together this package, you submit it to your local planning authority. They send it out for consultation with statutory consultees and with neighbours and other people that might be interested. And they'll review it and they'll test it against the local plan policies, national policies, and you'll either get permission or you won't. There's a fee associated with that. There are statutory timeframes, so they should be decided within 8 weeks for minor or 13 weeks for major applications. But as you say, there are numerous issues that can delay planning applications being decided. So there's a sort of quicker way in some ways of getting through the planning application process. So the other end of that spectrum is permitted development. So that is where you've basically almost been granted planning permission without the need for actually having to apply for it. The most common applications are for households. So you can do a small extension, for example, or a garage conversion in most places without needing planning permission. You just have the right to do that. Prior approval is a process that sits in between the two. It's something that uses permitted development rights, but you have to confirm with the local planning authority that no further permissions or applications are required. So you do still have to make a submission. You have to outline what it is you want to do, and depending on what prior approval specifically you're requiring, there'll be different levels of documents and reports and things like that. So there's almost 3 different levels. The beauty of prior approval versus full planning is that the timeframes are more compressed. And because it's a permitted development right, there's a default permission, at the end of it. The presumption is yes, rather than an open question with the planning application.
Yeah, so we've seen kind of the key things that are being pushed is, as you touched on, more flexibility in use classes within the high street, and also kind of promotion of building upwards. As with other things, of course, these are conditioned. But the new permitted developments that are being proposed often are through the prior approval application rather than going through the kind of the other permitted development that you described. So as you say, this process still would require some level of documentation and some level of review. Do you think it will ultimately make things easier? Do you see further opportunities coming from this for potential developers, or do you believe that the restrictions will still be quite limiting?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely opportunities to be had. Anything that makes the process a little bit quicker, makes it a little bit easier, and starting from this position of yes, opens a door in a way that perhaps it wouldn't be otherwise. I think there's also, you do still have to give a lot of consideration to each specific site and development, just because not only of the planning considerations, but how you build it, building regulations and things like that. But absolutely, there's this, even though you do have to make the application through prior approval and there is this process, it's a quicker way of doing things. And it also means if you're looking as a developer, if nothing else, it's a fallback position. So if you're looking at, saying, doing something that is outside the realms of these permitted development rights, it's a way of saying, well, under PD I could get to this level and I just want to go a little bit further. So it's more of a stepping stone in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of these changes are happening quite quickly, and it'll be interesting to see if anything further is going to come out. But I think definitely this is one for developers to keep an eye open and look at potential opportunities. When it comes to being familiar with the legislative changes, the more knowledge, the more power there is essentially in learning how to work the system and also best engage with planning.
Absolutely. And although it can be quite neatly summarised in some government announcements, which you can find, on the internet, they are very long technical documents, and so unfortunately, everything with planning is not simple. There are caveats everywhere. So do a lot of them, really engage with qualified planning consultants who can guide you through it. Is definitely the moral of that story.
Yes. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much for your time, Alison. As always, if there are any questions, get in touch with us here at PPP. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.